everybody. I am so glad to see you here today. We are going to be talking about salmon, one of my favorite dishes to make. My name is Danielle Scott, and I work for the University of Idaho as the Extension Educator for the Nez Perce Tribe Reservation. We are located in north central Idaho. I'm so happy to be a part of this Get the Dish series and be able to share with you some of my personal favorite recipes using one of my personal favorite foods, which is salmon. So to get us started today, I'll go over a little bit of what we'll be learning today. I'm going to provide an information on the introduction of salmon, salmon life cycle, types of salmon in the Northwest, some of the health benefits of eating salmon, how to cook salmon, and do a cooking demonstration, and then follow that up with some Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. So the salmon life cycle. Salmon are very unique species in that they don't start off just living in the waters here. They go out to the ocean and then they come back to their original starting place where they were laid out as eggs. So you can see in the bottom left section that the female digs a nest called a redd in the freshwater gravel in her homelands. And then after she lays the eggs, the male will come and fertilize the eggs, and that's how they get settled. So one thing to know about the female salmon is that the female salmon is a wonderful mother. She will go down fighting to save anyone from trying to get to her eggs with her very last breath. Salmon are known to lay their eggs, stay near their eggs, taking their last breath. They will flip in the water. They will splash around if anyone tries to come near those eggs, whether it's a predator or anyone else, just to try and save them. I find that really, really cool to know that there are mothers in the animal world that are just as tough as we are. We aren't going to let anyone touch our babies, and neither will the female salmon. So after the egg grows up a little bit, it becomes an alevin, and the alevin have their yolk sac. That's what their job is, to absorb that, grow a little bit bigger. And once they absorb their yolk sac, they're going to emerge from the gravel and then feed on some tiny aquatic insects. And then they will go on to grow from there, all the way back up to the large salmon, which goes back out to the ocean to grow even bigger. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So there are some different types of salmon in the Northwest. A lot of times when I will ask my students what color a salmon is, and quite often they say green. They say fish are green. But salmon are very unique. They come in a variety of beautiful colors. The Chinook salmon has a bright pink to it, kind of a pinkish red. And they are a wonderful source of protein, vitamins, and minerals. They have a high fat content compared to the other salmon, and that'll make a difference in your cooking. When you're cooking with salmon and you're looking for that juicier bite of salmon and more of those healthy fats into it, a Chinook salmon is a good way to go. They're a great source of vitamin D, the omega-3 fatty acids, selenium, B vitamins, phosphorus, potassium, and magnesium. And they are also have no carbohydrates. So if you're watching your carbs, as we all should, the salmon is a good way to go to reduce those number of carbohydrates while you're also getting some nice lean proteins into your diet. Sockeye, you can see that the appearance of the sockeye is different from what we just saw. Has a much brighter red to the back side of it, and then the head is green. So these ones are very distinct in color, and you can see when there are salmon that are streaming up that you'll see just a splash of red, and you'll know that that's the sockeye that's down there. The sockeye is also a very good source of the omega-3 fatty acids, this one especially of the EPA and the DHA omega fatty acids. It's a very low carb food, and because it is a migratory species, it really stays very clean because it's always on the move. It isn't staying stagnant. It's going out to the ocean and coming back, and that makes it a very healthy food. The coho salmon is a very distinct feature with that hooked nose on the very front. You can see that it also has some red on it, and it's also more streamlined than some of the other species of salmon. Like the other species, it's also a great source of the omega-3 fatty acids, and it does contain, surprising, daily amount of vitamin D. So just by eating some of the coho salmon, you can get your whole source of vitamin D for the day. It also has plenty of vitamin B12, a moderate amount of potassium and calcium, and the nutrients in the coho salmon help with the brain health and the brain function. That's where we get the idea that the fish is brain food. You know, there are some people that will take fish oil as part of the supplements to their daily diet. But instead of doing fish oil, you could just eat some coho salmon, and then you'll be getting those brain health and brain function foods that your body needs. It also has a high level of potent antioxidants. So this one is another, maybe some people consider it a less attractive salmon. It doesn't have any of the bright, flashy colors. This is known as the chum salmon. It is very distinct. It has kind of that tiger stripe look to it. Usually has just a little bit of red. It's not real flashy. But this is, again, is a good source of the omega-3 fatty acids. It is a lean protein, vitamins B12, niacin, and selenium. It's very low in sodium. It has a very mild flavor. So like some of the whitefish have a very mild flavor. The chum salmon, it will be great in some of those foods maybe that you don't want a real fishy taste to it. You want something that's just easier for some people's palate. It's also a very lean fish. Like I said, there's not a lot of fat in this one. And so again, think about that when you're cooking. Do you want a fattier fish? Do you want a leaner fish and for your dish? So you have a choice there. The pink salmon is the first one in the picture, the one closest. You can see that very delicate, almost rosy pink color to it. It also has the spots on its back and the spots on its tail compared to its cousin on the other side, the chum salmon, with those tiger stripes of the red and then a lot more of the green. So the pink salmon is the one that you're going to find in the grocery store a lot more. It'll come in a can like tuna comes in a can. It'll also come in a pouch like a Star-Kissed has some pink salmon. It's from the area as well. The pink salmon is very low, a very lean protein, low in fats and calories. So again, take that into consideration when you're using the pink salmon in your dishes. It is rich in omega-3 fatty acids like the others. It's high in vitamin D and B12, high in selenium and potassium. The pink salmon is pretty easy to find in most of your grocery stores. And so that makes it easily accessible, easy to add to your diet. Pink salmon that has been cooked through the canning process is great to add to a salad. It is also great to add as a sandwich spread, adding a little bit of mayonnaise, maybe some pickles, a little bit of lemon juice, and putting that onto some bread for a nice lean salmon salad sandwich. The pink salmon is also really good for making a salmon patties as well. And for those, you just have the salmon meat that you might get from that package or from that can, combining it with some breadcrumbs or some crackers, a little bit of egg to hold it all together, some salt and pepper, patty it up like you would a hamburger, and put that onto a hot grill or onto a hot skillet with some butter, and you're going to have a wonderful salmon patty. So there is a difference. The Pacific Ocean has a number of salmon, and then the Atlantic just has the one salmon. So over here again, we have the Chinook, coho, sockeye, pink, and chum salmon. And then in the Atlantic, they just have the one fish. So looking at them, you can see that when they're put into this format, that they are very distinct with the way that they look. There is definitely a difference. Sometimes people look at them and think, oh, they all look the same. But you can see the bright reds, the greens, the humpback, the hook nose, the very strong hump in the pink salmon there, and then the more green body with the with the red or purple stripes in the chum, compared to the Atlantic, which just has that golden bronzy body with some red spots, is smaller, more streamlined shape to it. So it's kind of nice to take a look at all of them and compare, what each of them look like. So, to the heart of the matter, the cooking of the salmon. So, there are a few different ways, but some of the preparation remains the same. So, when you are getting ready to cook your salmon, you want to make sure that you bring your salmon to a room temperature. So, let the fillet sit on the counter. Maybe you're taking it out of the freezer, put it into the refrigerator to let it thaw. And then you're taking that thawed salmon fillet and putting it out onto the counter. I would suggest covering it with like a paper towel or parchment paper, something, just in case there's anything that wants to fly by and land on your salmon. That's not good. So you want to bring it to room temperature, sitting on the counter for maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And then you'll want to get the paper towels out and just dab at it. You don't want to rub it hard because it is a very delicate meat to it, the fish. So you just want to dab at it and get out any of that excess moisture in that fish. This is the key to having a good sear or a nice crispy skin on that fish. So make sure that you just dab it down. It's really important. Don't skip that step. And then you don't want to season it too early. Don't let it sit on the counter and be all seasoned up and drawing out all of the moisture. You want to wait until just before you're getting ready to cook it. So your pan is hot, maybe your oven is hot and you're just getting ready to put it in. That's when you're going to add your seasoning. So make sure that you take that into consideration with your timing. You also want to use a thermometer just to make sure that the doneness of your fish is going to be the right amount. So the internal temperature should be between 120 to 130. The USDA recommends 145. And some people think, that's overcooked. And so there's a little bit of a personal preference in there, but you also get to know what you like when you cook salmon. So it might take a couple times experimenting how you like to have yours or what your family prefers. But those are some guidelines for that. So there are many different ways that you can cook salmon, and I've just named a few of them here. One of the most popular ways that you'll see salmon cooked is by the baking method. So in this case, the salmon has been filleted. You can also find sometimes a salmon steak, which has been cut right from the top of the salmon's back down through the bottom or its belly part. And in this case, the salmon fillet, well, it's oftentimes preferred because it gets out the majority of those bones, which, we don't like to have to deal with when we're eating fish. Choking hazard, it's just not pleasant. It can be pokey. So the fillet is a great way to go because you're able to get rid of the majority of those bones, and what is left, you're able to pull out using some tweezers just to debone any of those larger ones. And we'll talk more about other methods to get those bones out as well. So baking being one of the preferred methods, you want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. I don't recommend it going higher than that because you're playing with the potential for it to dry out. I usually cook my salmon anywhere between 350 and 375, and I just accommodate more time for it to cook. But low and slow is the way to go, in my opinion. You want to line your baking sheet or your cookie sheet with aluminum foil and spray it with some cooking spray. It'll make it easier to clean up. It's really important, I think, to make cooking fun, and doing dishes is not the fun part of cooking. So do yourself a favor and put that aluminum foil, some parchment paper on there, something that is going to make it easy that you can just pull off, throw away, and then just have to do a quick, easy wash of that pan. You're going to place the salmon on the foil with the skin side down. And I really emphasize that, the skin side down, because the flesh part is what you're going to be eating. Not everybody eats the skin, and the skin can take a lot more heat than the flesh part. It will dry out, but the skin will just drop to a nice crisp, like a potato chip. And that's one of my favorite parts of it. Actually, not everyone's favorite piece, but it is one of my favorite pieces. A nice crispy piece of skin is one of my favorite things. So you want to drizzle the top of that with a little bit of olive oil or a simple lemon, garlic butter sauce, season it with some salt and pepper and herbs. You might choose that if you don't have olive oil, you can use some pats of unsalted butter and put that across the top. Salmon is, like I said, a fattier fish, and so you don't have to add a lot of fancy fats to it. You want to keep it on the healthier side. That being said, I do have a husband that loves when we cook salmon his way. And his way is to have pats of butter, uh, uncooked bacon strips across the top, some lemons, some onions, salt and pepper, and cooked into the oven on a very low, slow heat. So he picks up all of those wonderful flavors of the butter and the bacon, but it does add to the calories, so you got to be careful of that. Lemon is a great partner with salmon, and I do encourage you to use that as part of your cooking, even like a lemon pepper sauce or lemon pepper spread is the great way to go on that as well. Bake it for just 10 to 12 or 12 to 15 minutes until the internal temperature reaches your desired doneness. And again, you're going to find that you're going to be able to tell that the fish will turn into a pale pink color. It will be easy to flake away from the other parts of the flesh and still be able to retain its juiciness. Pan searing is a great way to go as well. If you're not able to get out to the grill, maybe it's too cold outside, maybe you don't want to heat up your whole house with having the oven going for a long time. Cooking the salmon in a pan is a great way to go to alleviate all of that, and it will cook, pretty quickly. So when my kids were growing up, we would have what they refer to as salmon strips, like chicken strips, but it's salmon. And so the salmon in this picture is a little bit wider, a little bit thicker. We would cut like maybe each of those strips would be 2 to 3 strips that we would cook. And we would cook a brown butter, a little bit of garlic, some salt and pepper, and put those strips in there and cook those up to a nice crispness. And that's the way that we would have them. But when cooking in the salmon, doing a pan searing method, you want to heat up the oil in the pan and over a medium heat until it's shimmering. You want to season the salmon right before you put it in, skin side down, gently press down with a spatula to prevent the skin from curling. Because as that skin gets hot, it's going to shrink and it's want to pull together. So use that spatula just to keep those ends down from it curling up too much. And you want to cook it without moving it at all. You don't need to flip it, nothing fancy. Just let it sit there and do its thing for about 4 to 5 minutes. When the skin gets to be a golden brown and crispy, you can kind of take a peek on the underside, see that. Then you just want to do a quick flip with it and cook it for just another minute or two. That top part of the salmon doesn't need a lot of cooking. It is already cooked with the heat that's been surrounding it, but flipping it over provides that extra sear to hold those juices in and give it a nice coloration. You'll know that it's done when the salmon again starts to flake away and the internal temperature has reached the proper degree. Grilling the salmon. This is one of my favorite ways to do this as well. During the summer, during the spring, the summer, and then again into the fall, we are catching salmon on the river. And so having a grill right there by the river, and as soon as you take the fish out, clean it up, have your grill hot, ready to go, that's one of the best ways to have salmon. But having salmon at home, your home grill, you go out onto the patio, you're going to go out there and heat up that grill to a nice high heat. You're going to place the salmon again, skin side down, on an oiled piece of aluminum foil. So you use some spray oil. I like to use the olive oil spray onto the foil. And again, that helps to keep it from sticking. And then you can put that fish that has been on the foil, directly onto the grates of the grill. And it is suggested that you do oil those grates so it's easier to get that off of the grill because the aluminum foil will stick to that grill as those oils and sugars are released from in there. So once it's on there, you want to reduce the heat where the fish is located on the grill to more of a medium to low heat. Like I said, the fish is really fatty, and so as it's cooking, those juices and those fats will be released, and they will drip out of those packages and onto the flames, which can cause a flare up on your grill. And you don't want to have that. That can cause burn your aluminum foil and just cause a mess. And so you want to make sure that you have reduced that heat and then you've moved that fish to where they're getting more of the surrounding heat rather than the flames. Cook it on the grill for about 9 to 15 minutes, depending on the thickness of the piece of fish that you're using. And you don't need to flip it when it's in these foil pouches. It's going to just hold its heat inside of there, so you don't need to flip it. Smoking your salmon is another way to go. Because of the high fat content of the Chinook salmon, it is a wonderful candidate to put into that smoker. So a lot of times people will smoke their salmon and then they will can their salmon, which is another method of preserving it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that too, but that's just another step. With some of the smoked salmon that we do, we will freeze it. After we vacuum pack it, we'll freeze it, and it remains really good for throughout the year. We don't usually have a problem with freezer burnt or anything like that. So there's the hot smoking and then there's cedar planking. So the hot smoke, you're putting the fish into a low temperature, around 180 degrees, with the smoke from the wood chips of an alder, cherry, or apple until it reaches that desired doneness. And you can tell it gets really shiny. Those oils come out and it gives a shiny surface to it. Now, some people like to add a marinade or a brine to their to their salmon before they smoke it. And that's, again, just a personal preference. Oftentimes they'll use brown sugar, they'll use soy sauce and coat that salmon fillet with that. Other people will use some garlic. So it just kind of depends on your taste. But there's different ways to add additional flavor to it. But just the good old smoked fish on its own is just as wonderful as well. Cedar planking is a little bit of a different method. You're going to take a cedar plank, soak it in water, and then place the seasoned salmon onto the plank and then put it onto the grill and just let it slowly smoke that way, or heat up that way, cook that way. And then the cedar plank will add some oils from the cedar as well, giving a little bit of a piney taste, but it's very delicious. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that's used as well. So as Indigenous people, we look to salmon as one of our main food sources. In the Nez Perce story of creation, it is said that the Creator went before all of the animals and said he was going to be creating man, and man would need to be fed. And he asked all the animals, who will feed these people? And it was the salmon, the first to stand up and step forward and say, I will feed the people. This became the covenant of the people with the salmon, in the agreement that salmon would take care of the people, and in return, the people would take care of the salmon. So in many Indigenous cultures, the salmon is very important part of their diet, but also a very important part of their spiritual and cultural beliefs. So the coastal people do a little bit different cooking method than what we have over here. They take some pieces of cedar planks and they do a split in the middle, and then they have one of the ends that is pointed. So the pointed end is put into the sand, and in the middle of the sand is this fire pit. So they take a salmon fillet, part of it, and they put a wooden skewer through it, and then through the cedar post, and then back through the other side of the fish. So it's woven in there. The flesh side is towards the heat source, so it cooks the flesh, and then the skin side is on the outside. So this is, again, a low and slow method of cooking it, and at the same time, it's getting that nice smoky flavor to it as well. So you'll see that there'll be people with their salmon steaks that the salmon wooden steaks that they'll have with them when they go down to the river to fish, so they can cook those at the same time as they're fishing. Another method is the open smoked salmon. In this case, you can see where the salmon fillets have been cut into thicker strips. And this one looks like it's probably had a marinade put onto it. And then it's put onto a larger skewer and then just sat next to a smoke source that is going to continue to cook that with the heat of the smoke. So another way that we will cook salmon is using the method of making the salmon into a jerky. And with this method, the salmon pieces, the salmon strips are cut very thin. They don't usually add a lot of ingredients to them, although some of the newer methods, people will add a brine to them. But traditionally, the salmon would be cut into these strips, maybe add a little bit of salt, and then let it dry out. And this could be done through a dehydrator, or in the other case, wind dried. You can see on the picture on the right that the salmon have been cleaned, the skin has been left on, and the inner meat has been scored. They'll salt it down and then they'll just hang it out into the wind and let the wind dry that. It turns into a nice flaky preservation of that fish that is easy to travel with. Because of the salt, things like flies and other insects don't bother with it. So it's able to just dry out using the salt will dry out some of the moisture, and then the wind draws out more of that moisture to preserve it. So a couple more methods that we use as Indigenous people. Like I talked earlier, they'll take the smoked salmon and they will can it in jars using a water bath so that it preserves. A lot of times at ceremonies and giveaways, different events, people will hand out canned smoked salmon as a gift. And that's a great honor to us when we're gifted something like that. Candied salmon, I'm going to venture to guess, is something that maybe a lot of people have not learned about or haven't had a chance to try. Candied salmon is what is called Indian candy. It is a very sweet flavor to it. It goes through a process to preserve it and becomes a beautiful piece of fish that's kind of translucent, and it does definitely look like candy. So I'm going to stop sharing here and pull up the video and show you the process of canning, or excuse me, of doing candied salmon.
All right, so today we're going to take you through the process of making Indian candy. We're going to use sockeye salmon today for this, but to start off with the brine, this is our ingredients. We've got about a liter of pure maple syrup and about 2 liters of pure honey, about 3/4 of a cup coarse salt, 2 kilograms of demerara sugar, half a gallon of water, and a clean bucket. So we're going to mix all this up, put it in there, and we're going to put our fish pieces in there and let it soak for probably 12 hours. But we'll just put all that stuff in the bucket and mix it up. Okay, so the first thing we do to make our brine is we put in half a gallon of water. I put in 2 kilograms of demerara sugar. The dark stuff, it's good. This is an expensive brine, but you can will go a long ways. A couple kilograms of that. Make sure you use the pickling salt. Don't use the table salt. Use the coarse salt, pickling salt. Dump that in 3/4 of a cup. And 2 liters of honey. Sticky. Yummy. One. There's the other going in. This is going to be good. Good stuff. Good meat. And we put in our real maple syrup. This is expensive stuff, but it's all worth it. So you taste this stuff. It's great. There. There. Syrup. Right. Mix that all up real good. And we'll check back and we'll put our salmon in there, our salmon strips, and let it soak. All right, so as you can see, I've used sockeye salmon. I've filleted the fish, taken all the pin bones out, and I'm cutting it in about 1/2 to 3/4 inch strips. And then, nice. Then what I do after is I take the skin off. This comes right off. Just like that. That's the piece you want. We've got 3 sockeyes here, so got a fair bit of salmon to go in the smoker. So here's our finished product. We've got, well, I don't know, about 6.5 pounds of nice sockeye. You can see these are nice pieces, nice no bones, and they're gonna all go into the brine. Just plunk them all in there like that. And then give it a good stirring. Stir it up, just like that. Get it all mixed up, nice and good. Make sure all the pieces are in there, covered with the syrup and the honey. We're going to let that sit for, I don't know, 12, 16 hours and take it out, and we're going to dry it off. We'll check back in the next process. Okay, so we're back now, and we're going to take the brined fish out and place it on a rack. But what we do is take a piece of fish out of the brine. Pretty simple. Stick a toothpick through the end of it and hang it on the rack to dry. Now that fish is going to stay there for probably 24 to 36 hours until it becomes almost clear and translucent. So we'll check back and see how it looks in the next process. All right, so it's cured and we're just about to put it in the smoker. As you can see, the product is almost see-through, ready for smoking. Nice. Okay, so we got our fish strips, our Indian candy in the smoker, and just starting to go now. I'm using some apple chips on there. Probably do 2 or 3 pans of apple chips. We'll leave it in there for, I don't know, 6, 7 hours. It's already dried out. You could probably already eat it like that. We're just adding some smoke flavor to it. And here comes the smoke. Okay, so here's the end result of the Indian candy. Been in the smoker for about 4 hours, and it's just falling apart. Look at that. Just doesn't get any better than that. That is just prime sockeye salmon. Nice and sweet, yet it's got a smoky flavor. Get a nice cold beer. Nothing else you can ask for. So until next time, check back, tight lines.
So I found that to be a really great video to be able to share about candied salmon. And I have had candied salmon before. I've not made it yet. It is on my to-do list, but it is absolutely divine. I can't say enough of it. And when I do get my hands on some, I am a pretty happy little camper. So I'll go back to the slides here and move on. So there are different parts of the salmon, and this is the way that the salmon is used. We use every single part that we can, including the spine. The spine is often wind dried, and then all of the flakes are taken off of it, put into maybe a shaker or a bowl or something, and those are great to add to a baked potato or to a soup or anything like that. The heads, the fins, the tail, the heads, the fins, and the belly area are also utilized. The fins and heads are usually boiled and added to soups or broth. A little bit more about that. The salmon collars, those are eaten, used with a little bit of the olive oil and some lemon, a little bit of salt. We talked about the crispy salmon skin. The salmon cheeks are a delicacy. So underneath that little cheek flap is some really wonderful meat that is highly coveted and was usually just given to the chief or someone who is high up in the tribal leadership. And then we have the salmon flakes, and we'll be using some of those today. Also utilized is the salmon roe, or the eggs can be made into a caviar. Sometimes you do catch a salmon and it is a female that has not yet dropped her eggs. And so we will use those as well. So let's get on to the cooking demonstration. So I'm going to just do a little shuffle here and we will get started with that. I will be making a smoked salmon cheese ball. We will do some salmon bites and also a salmon hash. So I have provided the recipe for you here if you would like to copy that down while I get things going. It'll take me just a minute to start up my skillets. And I do have my gloves right here. So I turned on my skillets. They are just over here. Try and give you a shot of those. And I will be starting with the salmon bites. So the salmon bites are little cubes of salmon, and we'll grab those. So we put on my gloves. My skillets are warming up. I can feel the heat from them already. So you can see that they are just little pieces that I cut into about 1-inch pieces. And this is what you're looking for when you're getting your salmon. This is a nice salmon fillet. You can see the color in it. This one still has the skin on the back. And I left the skin on all of my salmon nuggets here as well. So with the salmon nuggets, I'm going to put in some flour. You just want an all-purpose flour for that. And in this case, you can do this in a bowl, or you can do this like what I'm doing is just adding the flour into a larger plastic baggie. And I do reuse my baggies depending on what I've put into there. So I try to use as few of these as possible just to be cognizant of our ecosystem and what we're putting into the landfills. So like this flour baggie, I will use again because there was just flour in that. So I'm going to take my salmon nuggets and I'm going to put them into the flour. All the ones that I've cut up, put all of those into there. And I would say this is probably, I did just kind of a small batch with this one. So this is probably about maybe a pound that I have cut up. And so it's good to work with like about 2 pounds. That's usually enough for maybe a family of 4. If you got some hungry teenagers, you might want to add a little bit more salmon chunks to this in this recipe. But these salmon bites, especially if you get the kids involved, because we all know that when kids are able to be involved in the cooking process, they'll tend to eat it more. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to add a little bit of the Old Bay. This is, again, one of my favorite seasonings to go with salmon. And again, this is another one where you just measure with your heart. I really love Old Bay. We use it on a lot of things, including things like popcorn, eggs, a lot of different things other than just fish. And then you're just going to do this. And kids love to do this. So let them add the flour in there. Let them put the pieces of fish in there and let them add the seasoning. They love to do that sort of thing. And especially when they get to roll it around into the bag. That's oftentimes a lot of fun for them. So we got our skillet heating up, and then I just use a butter. I think a brown butter works wonderful with fish. So in this case, I bought the good butter, and I'm going to put in just a couple tablespoons at a time to the skillet and let it get nice and melty. So now that our skillet is warm, I'm going to put the butter in there, let it heat up for just a minute, and then I'll go ahead and add in our fish nuggets. Okay. And again, I'm using you'll want to use an unsalted butter because there's plenty of salt in the Old Bay to get what you need. So let that melt into there. And then while we're waiting on that, we have our second dish that we're going to go ahead and get started. And that is our salmon hash. So in the salmon hash, like most hash, you start with some potatoes. We're going to use a little bit of olive oil in this one. Get our pan nice and oiled up. So again, measuring with the heart, that was probably about 2 tablespoons in my eyes. And then while that's heating up, I'm going to get my potatoes ready to dump in. Now I just grabbed a bag of the Southern style hash browns. So those are little potato cubes. But also if I don't have these, I will just use a couple of potatoes. Russet potatoes are great for this. And cut those up, dice them up nice and small, and use those in this recipe. So again, over here in pan number 1, I have my butter. Butter is melting and it is getting ready for those salmon bites. Over here, my olive oil is heated up and I'm just gonna dump in my potatoes. You can hear that nice sizzle. That means my skillet is ready. It is ready to go. Okay, so now that we have those in there, I'm gonna spread those around a little bit. It doesn't take them too awful long to cook. You can throw them in there when they're frozen, or you can let them out a little bit and put them in there. Okay, so now I hear the sizzle of my butter going. So I am just going to drop in my fish nuggets. I usually shake off a little bit of that flour because I don't need all of that flour into this cooking process. And so this lightly coats it. I don't need a lot of coating on that. And again, this is something that the kids like to do. I just want to warn them that the pan is going to be hot, but they do like to drop these in there. I don't put a lot of butter in there that's going to splash back up. I just add a little bit of butter as I go. So I'm just dropping these fish nuggets into there. In that nice warm butter, and you can start to smell it. If there was smell-o-vision, you'd be able to tell, but it smells absolutely divine because I have that brown butter smell going on, and some of those seasonings are coming out, and so it smells just wonderful. I'm going to mix those around a little bit. You don't want to move them around too much because it'll drop off its flour coating. And I'm just going to put a lid on that to make sure it stays nice and warm. Got our potatoes going in on this side. And what I'm going to do is give them a little bit of a stir as well. And this is such a simple, easy dish to make. Potatoes, I might add in here a little bit of onions, but if you have people that don't like onions, then leave them out. You know, it's kind of all up to you. So what I want is for those potatoes to get just a little bit of a crisp on them. And then I will go ahead and add in the salmon. Now the salmon, what I've done is just baked it. And then once it's baked and cooled a little bit, I'll go through it with my gloved hands and take out any bones that might be left in there, separate out any fat that might be there, take off any skin. And then I just have a nice little shredded salmon. So I have that right here. So this is our shredded salmon that's been baked just today. Now I'll use some of this in here. I'll have obviously a lot left over that I can freeze and I can add it to other recipes. I might add it to a soup, a nice salmon chowder, add it to some scrambled eggs. There's many uses that you can have for this. So I'll go ahead and throw this in there now. And again, measuring with my heart, I would say that's probably a cup. And we'll say 2 cups. So 2 cups are in there. And really, the salmon is already cooked, so it doesn't need to cook a lot. It's really just warming up with those potatoes and adding its flavor to the potatoes as well. So got those going on. Now you don't want to leave these, but you don't have to babysit them that much as well. And I have my temperature at about 300. I'm going to turn it down just a skosh, down to about 250 in the skillet. Moving my butter aside. Okay, so we have that going, and the other recipe that I promised is going to be a smoked salmon cheese ball. So just taking a package of salmon, or excuse me, a package of cream cheese, just take a whole brick of it. This has been sitting out, brought it down to room temperature, and I'm just going to add it. Let you see here. I'm just going to add it to this piece of smoked salmon. So I'm going to peel off the skin, save that for later. And then I'm just going to pull this apart with my fingers, taking out any bones that might be in there. Yep, there's one. So him off to the side, him off to the side. And this is just a small piece, but you don't really need a lot. Smoked salmon has a lot of great flavors to it. And with this cream cheese, it'll help to make it a little bit more mild, but at the same time, you're going to get a strong, smoky, delicious fish flavor in this. So I've done this with kids, gave them a little piece of salmon. They love to be able to just get their fingers in there and mush it around. They love to wear the gloves. It's just a good time. So all that practice playing with Play-Doh comes into play when we are making this cheese ball. Okay, so I think I have all of my bones out of there. And so I'm going to add just a little bit of cut up green onion. When I say a little bit, I'm thinking like, again, measuring with my heart, probably about, a tablespoon or two. And then I am just going to mush this all together. And this is really kind of fun. Miss those days of playing with Play-Doh with my kids, actually. So you're just going to get that all pulled together. Let me do a real quick check on our other fish over here. So our salmon bites are just about done. Got my little turner here. So I'll be flipping over these little salmon bites, making sure they're all getting what they need to do, doing what they need to do, and getting where they need to go. Give a nice stir to our hash over here as well. So the hash can be a great breakfast food. You could pair it up with some eggs. You could make it your main meal. Hash, sometimes I'll add some frozen corn to it just to give it a little extra something as well. But the hash is so diverse, it can go from being a breakfast to a brunch to a lunch to a dinner real easily, and then just pairing it up with some other things on as your sides. So this cheese ball takes no time at all. People will think that you spent a lot of time, you feel kind of fancy with it, and everyone seems to love it. I had a friend that she swore that she hated fish and she would not eat fish. I made this cheese ball one time for a Christmas party, invited her. She was sitting there and she just kept taking her crackers and putting more and more of the cheese ball on there and just complimenting how wonderful this tastes. And then after probably an hour or so, she says, "What is in that dip? It is so good. I just love it." I said, "Well, Susie, I kind of hate to tell you." I said, "You've been eating smoked salmon this whole time." And she said, "What? You didn't tell me." And I said, "No, but you were enjoying it. So, why would I tell you?" And then she quit eating it. I was like, "You've been eating it the whole hour." So just to make it a little bit fancier, I take some of these slivered almonds and I'm just going to put, maybe 3/4 of a cup, half a cup on here. And I'm just going to roll it in these slivered almonds. It gives it that extra little bit of a crunch. It also provides a little bit more protein and it actually makes it look a little bit fancy, I think. So putting it on there like that. I'll usually serve this onto my big tray, make it look all nice on there, and then surround it with a bunch of different kinds of crackers. Ritz crackers, any buttery crackers go fantabulous with this dish. So that's our easy peasy salmon ball, salmon cheese ball. Okay, so I'm going to continue to cook over here and see what's going on with our salmon bites. So move my camera a little bit so that you can see it a little bit more in here. Down into the pans. See, they're starting to get brown. There's all that brown lusciousness of our brown butter that's in there. And I just flip them over so that they get an even cooking on each side. So those are looking good. They're getting heated up. And they will get a little bit of a crisp to it, which is, what we're looking for as well, from that butter and from that flour. So these guys are doing great. We'll let them go a little bit longer. And again, it doesn't take very long. You don't want to overcook this. It will get dried out and then it's just not as pleasant. So we'll let those go a little bit longer. Okay, over here in pan number 2, we have our salmon hash. You'll see it's just the potatoes and the salmon in there. We could add some green onions to it. That would be nice. We could add some yellow onion to it. That would be great as well. But if you don't like onion, don't add it. Some garlic will be great in there as well. So we're just allowing that to finish cooking up. In the meantime, if we were live, I'll be asking if there are anybody has any questions. And so again, I will scroll down one more slide here and give you the information for the salmon bites and the smoked salmon cheese ball. Leave that up for a few minutes there so that you can see that. Now, an important part of cooking with salmon is the preparation. I didn't go over that today. That's something that takes a little bit longer, and I like to do a demonstration of cutting it. If we did that, we wouldn't have got to the cooking part of it. So that'll be for another time that we can do a video on how to fillet a salmon. That's a really important piece. So other than that, the Get the Dish series is done for the year. I believe that it will be coming back and more things will be added. In the meantime, I just wanted to give you a little bit of information. If you would like to contact me, there is my email address, as well as Cindy Martinez, who's also been part of this Get the Dish team. And you can contact either one of us with any of your questions. I'm going to go back to that so that you're still able to get that information if you wanted those recipes. So in the meantime, I'm going to go over here and check on my salmon bites again while you are writing that up, writing that recipe down. These are looking really good. And I kind of just eyeball it too. If there is, if it's looking kind of dry or, like it needs more butter, then I'll just add more butter. And butter is something that I really like. So sometimes I can get a little bit heavy with the butter, but you do you. You might decide that, you really don't want the butter as part of this recipe. Again, you can use olive oil. You could use coconut oil. It's really good. It gives a little bit of a coconutty taste to it. I have used that before. So again, just kind of play with your recipe, kind of figure out what you like, what your family likes. Always try to have the kids be a part of the process. Teaching kids how to cook is something I think is such a valuable lesson as they grow up, and they do grow up quick. To be able to go out and instead of just living off of hot Cheetos and ramen noodles in college, maybe they have figured out their favorite recipe on how to cook their salmon, and they can share that with their friends and roommates in college. Well, again, this is looking just a little bit dry to me. I'm going to take a little bit more butter and add that in here and just kind of refresh it a little bit. So I'll show you what it's looking like now. So you can see all that yumminess coming together. And you can serve this with some tartar sauce if you want to. One of my kids is really a fan of tartar sauce, so he would always ask for tartar sauce with this. The rest of us just kind of liked it the way that it is, just like this. These are also a nice size for smaller kids to be able to just take a few of them, maybe start with just a test bite and see if they like it. Usually they do. I don't find very many kids who say, yeah, I tried it and I still don't like salmon. They're just that good. So those just have a few more minutes to go on that. In the meantime, we'll take a look at the hash over here. And it's all looking really good. just like I said, with this one, you just want to heat it through. If you wanted to, you could add a couple scrambled eggs. You could serve it as a breakfast or like a brunch or something like that. But it just has a nice mild flavor, really nice dish. You see one little bone that I missed in there, we'll take him out. And I am just going to go ahead and shut this off because it is done. And there we go. We have our salmon hash. We have our salmon bites. Yum. And then we have our cheese ball to finish it all up. And there you go. Hope you enjoyed the show. I hope that you will think of salmon the next time you're getting ready to plan your dinner. And I hope that everything works out for you. Enjoy. Thank you.